All right, good morning, everybody. Today's daf from our Kuf Lamed Daled, Kuf Lamed Hey. So we left off two lines from the top of Leishachak Meir of Shabbos. We're talking about different preparations for bris milah to be done prior to Shabbos. One of which was to prepare the bandage and to prepare some of the ointment or the cumin, which is good, helps healing for the milah. So if you have to crush it, you're supposed to do it before Shabbos. If you didn't get a chance, so he says that you don't do it, then you should go ahead and put it in your mouth and I guess crush it that way in an abnormal manner. So Taner Rabbanan. Dvarim she'ein oisin lemilah b'Shabbos, oisin b'Yontif, she'echin lo kamun, v'torfin lo yayin v'shemen. So things that you didn't do, right, for the milah, that you can't do it on Shabbos. Nevertheless, you can do it on Yontif, right? We can do it on Yontif, such as crushing cumin and mixing the oil and the wine. Right? What's the reason why I cumin? By the cumin, you go ahead and crush it on Yontif in a normal way. Because you go ahead and use it for cooking. And and also wine and oil also fit on Shabbos for a person who's sick. We learned as we learned in the Brisa. That you can't go ahead and mix wine and oil for a chayla on Shabbos. And Amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar Mishum Reb Meir. Af torfin yayin v'shemen. You can even go ahead. He argues. He says no. You can even go ahead and mix them on erev Shabbos. And Amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar Pam Achas Chash Reb Meir b'mav. One time Reb Meir he had some intestinal problems, stomach ache. Ubakshana litra of lo yayin v'shemen v'lo yinichan. And we wanted to go ahead and mix them wine and oil. And however, he didn't allow us. So I understand. You just said earlier, you said that a person's right. Shimon Elazar said the name of your name. You're allowed to go ahead and mix oil and wine for a chayla. You're a chayla, so understand your words are no longer apply. So Amar Lanu, he told us, Sha'ani Amerikan, v'chaveira Amerikas. Right, even though that's you're right, but nevertheless, I don't want to go ahead and go against the words of others, right? To go against the words of others who hold that it is forbidden. So who knew machar nafshe about kuliyama shari? So he says on himself he was machmir, but for the others, then he would pass and that would be mutter. So why does he do that? So hasam loy so he says, so hasam loy licha. Over there, in the case of the Mishnah, when we're talking about the chayla, the reason why he's makil over there is because you don't need to go ahead and beat it. However, but in this case, right, when the case of when we say, if you look at our Mishnah, when our Mishnah says you can't go ahead and beat it, so why our Mishnah is different? So our Mishnah says because when it comes to a baby, then it goes ahead for beating, and therefore, since it's in beating, the Mishnah says you should go ahead and just put it in one bowl, right, and put it in another bowl, right? As the Mishnah says, if I find it, right, the Mishnah is actually in the bottom of Kuf Lamed Gimel. It says over there, right? Right. So in other words, you put each one separately. So since over there, in the case of the bris milah, you have to apply it to the makom milah. So therefore, right, you don't go ahead and beat it and put it together. Therefore, what to do? So it's efshar to do it in a way without being machal Shabbos. So it's over here. So and hakanami navid v'olech. So it's over here. So why don't you go ahead and not go ahead and beat it, and I would just mix it. So that is exactly what you do here. In other words, it's not that it's usher to do bris milah, but it's usher to go ahead and beat it and mix them together. So therefore, since you're not allowed to really go ahead and mix it together, so that's the reason why that you can go ahead and have them separately, that and apply them each separately to the wound, and that will help heal. Fine. Taner Rabbanan, 2 dots. Ein mesanes kol halachas. They have to do with Shabbos now or Yontif. When it comes to making mustard, you can't go ahead and strain the mustard seed in the normal manner in this strainer. And you also can't go ahead and put basically a burning coal, right? A burning coal underneath it. They put under the mustard seed to sort of bring out some of the flavor of the mustard seed. So, Amalei by the Rav Yosef, what's the difference in this case? That's now we learn in the Mishnah. Nice name base of Masan Shachar. You got to go ahead and put an egg, right, in the mustard seed, and I guess the egg, the raw egg goes through there and it strains through. So over there, it doesn't appear like butter. You're not using a strainer; you're just using the egg, which all goes through. Over here, you're using a strainer. So therefore, since it appears like you're straining the mustard, therefore, be forbidden. And then we said also, everything else, Gachelas can't go ahead and make it sweet with the coal. So you can use a coal. So one is a coal or a burning piece of metal. The reason why you can't go ahead and put things on Shabbos is because you're not allowed to go ahead and make coal on Shabbos, right? That's the right. Knows anything that normally is usher is something which is constructive, right? So how is putting out a fire constructive? So when you put out wood, you can make it into charcoal. That's constructive, making it into charcoal. But so when it comes to something like wood, they can make it into charcoal. So therefore, that would be usher mustard. But that which it says is mutter to do is talking about metal, right? Metal doesn't become charcoal. So therefore, that was that what you said. That was you're allowed to use. Go ahead and I guess a burning piece of metal to use it to go ahead and sweeten the mustard. And Amarle Abai the Rabbi Yosef Maishna Mibisri Agumrei. What's the difference between why can you go ahead and roast meat, right, on Yantif, right? And even though that some of the meat is putting out, right, when it drips, some of the meat puts out the coals underneath it. Over there, you can't get good fresh meat if you had it from the day before, so therefore you're allowed to. So but over here, right, the mustard, you can do it from before Shabbos. So therefore, since you can do it before Shabbos, therefore we don't allow you to do it, but you can use regular wooden coal, right, wood to go ahead and heat it. And even though some of them might go out because of the meat, nevertheless, that meat, you can't go ahead and make it from the day before because it won't be as fresh or the same. And Amarle by the Rabbi Yosef, so what about to make cheese? Amarle Aser. Right? So it says Aser to go ahead and make cheese on Yantif. So Ma'ishna Melisha. Why is it different needing dough? Right? You're allowed to go ahead and knead dough on Yantif. So why can you not go ahead and make cheese? So over there, you can't go ahead and get fresh dough. There's the only way to bake it is, you're baking it that day. But when it comes to the cheese, right, you can have it the day before and it's just as good. And we'll soon see, it might even be better. I've heard the Gavina Basiyam Malio, right? That we said the cheese of of 1 day cheese, right, is good, right? So we see that maybe you should be able to make cheese so you can have the cheese on the day you make it. So Hachikah is meant to say, it doesn't mean that 1 day cheese. Actually, if you ate cheese a little better, right? It means even 1 day old cheese, even the cheese that day is also good. No, but certainly from Erev Shabbos or Erev Yantif is even better. So therefore, that's when you should go ahead and make and prepare your cheese and not do it on Yantif. Fine, 2 dots. So then we said by the baby, you can't go ahead and make the bandage. Right, you can't go ahead and cut the bandage on Yantif, and if you have another issue, go ahead and carry it and bring it over. So Amar Abaye, Amar Li'aim. So says Abaye. So now Abaye is going to mention many things that his mother told him. So the first one has to do with the bandage. So he says, Hai Chaluk Dianuka Bifnai Lesitra Le'aloi. Right, he says at the hem of the baby's of that which we say of his bandage, right, should be Le'aloi, right, should be going facing upward. And so the hem is away. Dilma midbek garda mine, but also they karshifa. Because perhaps if the hem is down, then perhaps it will get connected, on the wound area, and it will stick there. And then I guess by pulling it off, it will cause damage to the baby. That will be permanent damage to the makomila. And Ema the Abaye of the Kistasa the Palga, and the mother of Abaye's mother, right? She would go ahead and make, a lining to go on the inside of the bottom half in order to protect the makomila, so nothing would happen. And Amar Abaye once again, he says, Hayanuka de Lesle Chaluk. If a baby doesn't have a nuka after the basmina, does not have a bandage put on, Lesi Belisa Disle Shitsa, right? Go ahead and bring a piece of cloth that has a hem, right? The Isla Shifsa has a hem at the end. And go ahead and tie it around it at the bottom. Then turn it over on top. So in other words, that the hem, once again, is there so it doesn't fall off, but that the hem is not facing on the inside, it's turned away so it doesn't cause damage to the baby. right? So I guess it appears that I was trying to figure this out, but a child was born that perhaps there is skin right over the baby's anus, right? And I guess therefore it would be difficulty to go to the bathroom. So what should you do? The shavi mishkav lukmi b'hada yayme. Go ahead and basically put oil on the area outside of the sun. Behechid the zavi. Right, and then where it's clear, likre b'sa'arsa shasivara. Go ahead and take a piece of barley and use that to, I guess, go across, right? I guess the area where I guess the hole should be. But I guess a larger cleat to go ahead and make some sort of incision or cut that would be bad because that would cause it to wound. My mother told me how you knew the if a baby does not want to go ahead and nurse, right? So what should you do? So it's because its mouth is cold. So my take, say what should you do? Laisi kasta de gumre. Go ahead and bring some burning coals. And put it near the mouth, not in the mouth, but near the mouth. The coals, the chaim pume, and it will warm up the mouth. And then he'll go ahead and he'll nurse properly. Says, furthermore, my mother told me, right? Right? If a baby has difficulty breathing, then put a fan by him, and then he'll be able to breathe better. If you have a baby also does that breathing right early, breathing well after it's born, salisa, they may go ahead and bring the afterbirth right from the mother, right, and go ahead and put it right on top of the baby's flesh. Right, we saw a little earlier in terms of what others used to do with the afterbirth. Also over here, put it by the babies. I guess it'll feel easier. The afterbirth is something that's familiar with, and then it'll breathe easier. Right, right, a baby that was born and it was very skinny, right? So go ahead and bring the mother's afterbirth, right, and put it over his body, right, from the skinny end to the fat end. So that'll help it, grow and I guess become larger. The and if the baby is too big, right, it's bloated or some other issues, go ahead and rub it, down on the baby upon his flesh. But once again, it would be the opposite end. It will be from the wide end to the skinny end. If your baby is very red, it's because the blood is not yet inside the body, inside the skin. So and therefore wait for the blood to be absorbed into the skin, and then therefore the baby will have a normal appearance, and then if it'll go ahead and give him a bris milah, then he'll be ready. And conversely, the yaruk, if the baby is very yellow, right, drawn this, right, then it could be because the blood hasn't, he doesn't have blood. So right, wait till he has enough blood, and then go ahead and give him a bris milah. The Tanya, we learn in the Brisa. Amar Rav Nasan Pamachas alachti lekarcha. One time he went overseas. So one time, I went overseas, and a woman, right, she came out to me, and it was a woman. She gave a bris milah to her first son, and he died, and his second son, and he died, and the third baby they brought in front of me. And when I saw that he was red, that the baby was still too red to go ahead and perform the bris milah, don't go ahead and give now. And they wait until the blood, right, goes through the body, and therefore it's no longer a reddish appearance. So wait until the blood absorbed, right? And the baby, they give him bris milah, and he lived, and it was fine. Then he used to call him, based on Reb Nasan, they called him Nasan Ababli because of the advice given to the mother. And similarly, one time went out to Kapot Kai. Same, very similar case. A woman who would give bris milah, her oldest son, and he died. The next one, he also died. And the third one he brought out in front of me. And I thought he was yellow, his jaundice. I saw, and there was not enough dam bris, right, blood in the area. So Amarti, I told her, Hamtin la she'epol ba'dama, wait until the blood comes. V'imtin alone, they waited. Umalo isav v'chai. Then they waited until basically the yellowish went away, and there was enough blood by the dam bris. And then he gave bris milah, and he lived. Vayikona shemo nasan habavli al shmin. And they called him nasan bavli because of the advice given from Reb Nasan. Fine. Now Mishnah. Turn the page. So this is the top of the page. Marchitzin es hakoten bein lifnei amila bein lachar amila. So you're allowed to go ahead and wash the baby. It was good to go ahead and wash the baby right before the bris milah and right after. This is for the purpose of therapeutic, right? It was for healing properly. So you're allowed to give a warm, right? A warm wash before and after. Mazalfin alav biyad. And then it says over here, you sprinkle it, right? You wash it over with your hand. Aval loy b'kli, but not with a kli. So we have to see what it is. That which we said earlier, marchitzin, right? You're allowed to wash. Well, when you first read it, you think when it says you can wash, it means you can wash it the normal way, right? And then it says, oh no, you should only wash it in a different way by pouring over, which just with your hand and not with not with a kli. So you have to understand what the mission is going on, and it was saying if it's arguing or if it's qualifying. We have to see. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Omer marchitzin es hakoten b'yom hashlishi, says Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you're allowed to go ahead and wash the cotton on Yom Hashlishi if it comes out on Shabbos. Shechal yais b'Shabbos. Shneimar as pasuk vayibim Yom Hashlishi b'yasam kavafim. It wasn't the third day. That was the third day after the bris milah. That was when Avram Avinu was the most paid, right? So, second, this pasuk, right? No, excuse me. That was by Shechem, right? So over there, but we see that the third day is the most difficult day. After the bris milah, one is in the most paid, and therefore, if there's 3 days, it's the third day after the bris milah, then certainly one can be machal Shabbos and give a warm, hot, therapeutic bath for the baby, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Now, next case, suffix. Now, let's say a child was a suffix. So, according to the Mishnah, so if a child, right, was born either in the 7th month or 9th month of pregnancy, then the baby is a viable baby. The baby will live. If it's the 8th month, then the baby will die. So the baby will die if it was the 8th month. So therefore, you don't give a bris milah. You don't give a bris milah on Shabbos to one of that day because the baby is considered like it's going to go ahead and it will not survive, and therefore you're not machal Shabbos for it. So if it was a suffix, whether it was born on the 7th or 8th month or 8th or 9th month, right? We don't know. Then we're not machal Shabbos for that. We're not machal Shabbos for that suffix. Androgynous, and when it comes to androgynous, let's say a child has both male and female organs. Ein mechalin as a Shabbos. We're not mechal Shabbos. Also, if the 8th day comes out on Shabbos, you don't go ahead and give bris on Shabbos. You wait till Sunday until the 9th day. Rabbi Yehuda Matav androgynous. However, Rabbi Yehuda says no. With androgynous, we go ahead and we do give a bris milah. Now, let's see the Gemara. So the Gemara says, so we said marchitzin is a cotton, right? Whether before the milah, or after the milah, and then it says, right, you go ahead and you mezalfin, right? Then you go ahead and you only splash it on with water. So so what do you mean you only can use your hand, right? It says over there in the Reisha, it says marchitzin. It says you wash it, which sounds like the full way. You don't have to do it with some sort of shina. So Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Baravud, Damri Tarai both say Ketzad Tani marchitzin es a cotton bein lefnei mila bein lachar mila. Right, so it says no. It's telling you how to do it. Right, that which you say marchitzin es hakan bein lefnei machmila ketzan. How do you do that? Mazalfin lav biyad. Then you do it with your hand of aloy b'kli, but not with the kli. So according to the first opinion, according to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Baravua, so in other words, the Mishnah is saying that which we say you're allowed to go ahead and wash it is only by doing it with a shinui, by doing it a different way. And Amarav marchitzin. It says marchitzin. It says you can bathe it, right? Which sounds like you can go ahead and give a normal bath, right? And not just mizalfin. It says marchitzin. So Elam Amarav ha'chitz is to say marchitzin is the kad bein lifnei amila bein achar mila b'yom rishon kedarko. Go ahead and wash the baby normally, whether it's before or after. And on the first day, you can do it normally. And over here, according to his opinion, on the third day, right? In other words, not the day 1 and not day 2. Just 1 second. Not day. Right. So and the day 1 you can do it normally, but when it comes to day 3, then you can only go ahead and sprinkle. Right. You can't do it the normal way. Mazalf and Allah biyad v'lo yukli. And on that, Rabbi Ezra ben Azariah, no, marchitzin as a kod b'yom hashlishi shechalis b'Shabbos. He argues, says no. The third day is not just sprinkling; rather, the third day is even going ahead and giving it normally, just like the first day. Shinamar, as the pasuk says, "Vayi b'yom hashlishi b'yisem kovim." Right. It wasn't the third day when they were in pain. Fine. So Tanya Kavase the Rav, we have a brisa in support of Rav. Marchitzin hakotin bein lifnei mila bein la'achar mila. Right? B'yom rishon kedarko. It says over there you can go ahead and bathe a cotton, whether before or after the bris milah, on the yom harishon kedarko. Right? On the first day, the normal way. And then, however, it's the third day, then you go ahead and sprinkle it with the hand in an unusual way. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer Marchitzas Zakon B'Yom Hashlishi Shechalias B'Shabbos. You can even wash it. Even though there's no real exact proof, you're allowed to go ahead and wash it completely. But there's a little a hint to that, as the pasuk says, right? It wasn't the third day that they were in the most pain on the third day, and we see that day 3 is actually of significance for healing.
Well, the Gemara doesn't mention if it's in the 5th day. After the Milah, Shabbos fall on the 5th day. Are you still washing the baby? Or the 7th day?
No. So it sounds like only up until the third day. It sounds like up until the third day is still therapeutic. Afterwards, we would not be Machal Shabbos to wash the baby.
Doesn't come, right.
You're talking about only heating up the water to wash the baby, right?
Right.
Some kind of.
We're soon going to see. Right. It's a good point. We're soon going to see. Right. But look, there's also Gzeira, even water that was heated before Shabbos. Right. There's a takana. Right. One should not go ahead and use such water normally to bathe. Right. Let's say the water was heated from before, so one shouldn't go ahead and bathe. Right. He might come to squeeze out, or he might come and heat up more water. Right. But now we're soon going to. But we still will soon discuss in terms of water heated up on Shabbos itself, or talk about water that is even heated up on Friday. So, but we'll see that. It's a good point. But right now, the Gemara is assuming just giving like a warm, hot bath, right? A warm, hot bath, which is takana, right? A person might go ahead and heat up. Hot water is not enough if we allow people to go ahead and bathe in hot water. So it says over there, Shem is alpha, when they go ahead and sprinkle. And that which you said you can go ahead and sprinkle is only with a kli. Only with a hand and not with a kli. So we see over here that you say which you sprinkle goes according to the Tanakama, and that was according to the end which says you can sprinkle. That was going back on the Tanakama who held that sprinkling on day 3, but according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he says you're allowed to go ahead and give a full bath on day 3. And my alpha pishin rather davar zechadar. Why say that even though there is no proof, there's a hint in the pasuk? So why is this considered a hint and not a full proof? It seems like day 3 is the most difficult and painful day. So the bathing should be permitted there. So it says no. It could be that maybe a gadol, a person who is very older, like those people that lived Bnei Shechem. So those people, maybe adults, right, don't heal as quickly. So therefore, since they don't heal as quickly, day 3 was still very painful for them. But when it comes to a baby, maybe baby heals quicker, and therefore day 3 is not as bad, and therefore maybe they wouldn't be able to be Machal Shabbos for them. Now, Ha'udi also becoming the Rava, or like Shmaitza. One time there was somebody who came before Rava. He asked the Shaila, what can he do in order to go ahead and bathe the baby? So I'm like, and he answered him that you have to go ahead and you can give a normal bath after the bris milah, or the day, or before, right before or after. He says you don't have to do it. You can do it the normal, right? Because just like the words marchis and zakon. So Rava afterwards became sick. So Amar Onda Bahadi Targim Sabi Lamali. right? Why did I go ahead and argue with the other elders, right, who argued with me, right? They, Rav Yehuda and Rav Baravua, they explained it differently. They said that which we said you can wash only meant that you can wash in an abnormal way, like sprinkling with your hand and not, not with a cleat. So maybe that's why he was getting sick. I'm the Rabbanan Rav. I've hatani kavasei damar. But we had a brisa. We just brought us a brisa, which seemed to say that which is emerchitz, you can go ahead and wash in completely normal manner on day one. However, maybe if you look at the Mishnah, it sounds the lashon is more like them. Why? Mimai. By the time he says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, so and then he comes in, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah comes in and says, no, you can go ahead and wash the cotton of Yom HaShlishi if it comes on the third day, it comes on Shabbos. So if you mean that which Tanakama said, you're allowed to go ahead and wash, means you go ahead and sprinkle with your hands. Right? That's why he came in and says you're allowed to go ahead and wash even on the third day. But if you hold it, Tanakama held that you're allowed to wash completely on day one and sprinkle on day 3, right? Hi, Razan Azariah. Right, that which he says, Rabbi says marchitzin. If you say he was talking about it, he should have said af marchitzin miboile. He should have said af marchitzin, but he didn't say af marchitzin. He just said marchitzin. So it must be that the Tanakama, right, held you're not allowed to be marchitz completely at all. So therefore, it says Rava, maybe right, it was like the others and not like me, and that's the reason why I'm feeling faint or I'm feeling sick is because I ruled against it. And Kiyasa Rabdimi Omar Rabbi Elazar Halacha Rosaria. The halacha is like him that you're allowed to wash even on the third day. We're more makeup. And Havibah Rabbi's in Israel Hachatz is called Gufa Hachatz Mila. Right, that which we say, right, you can go ahead and wash. Are we referring to washing the entire body? That's therapeutic, or just the Makom Mila? So Amar Le'ahu Mirabban of Rabbi Yaakov Shemei. One of the rabbis asked, and Rabbi Yaakov was his name. It must be the whole body. Why? Right? If you're saying that we're only talking about the Makom Mila, right? Why is this worse than any other type of wound? Right? Right? In other words, if a person has a wound, you're allowed to go ahead and apply either hot water or oil and oil to the wound on Shabbos. So you're always allowed to go ahead and apply it to a wound. So what's the chiddush here? You're allowed to just apply it to the Makom Mila. No, it must be that something more. You're allowed to go ahead and give an entire bath to the entire body. So Rav Yosef, well, there's a huge difference, right? The huge difference over there is referring to hot water that was heated up from before Shabbos. Here we're talking, as Azi hinted to, here we're talking about even water, right? That we heat up on Shabbos for this purpose, right? Right? The differences between water then. So it must be, no, there's a clear difference. Maybe it's just Makom Mila, but it's because the big chiddush here is that you're allowed to go ahead and heat it up on Shabbos. And right? And who says over here that they're arguing whether you can go ahead and heat up the water on Shabbos? Right? And maybe over here, maybe we're talking about water that can be heated up. We're only talking about water that can be heated up from Erev Shabbos, right? And the machlokes is whether or not you can go ahead and either bathe the entire body or the Makom Mila. Right? I came to go ahead and answer the question that which Rav Yosef says. Right? And Rav Yosef actually, right, he knew what I was going to answer. And I tried to basically, respond to that. And Rav Yosef anticipated what my answer was. And therefore, he jumped in and says, right? Because it's a sakana. Therefore, since we're talking about a case of a sakana, we're even talking here about, it's not just a question of are we allowed to heat up water on Shabbos or not, and we're only referring to water is heated up before Shabbos. No. Since it is a sakana, therefore, we're even talking about water that was heated up before. And it's Barnami Kyosef Rabin, Amar Rabbi Yavo, Amar Rabbi Elazar. Family themselves say Amar Rabbi Yavo, Amar Rabbi Yechon. Halach Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The halach is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Bein Shechem Shuchim v'Shabbos. Bein Shechem Shuchim Erev Shabbos. Whether it's water heated up on Shabbos or water that's heated up on Friday. Bein Hachasas Kufo. Whether it's an entire body or Bein Hachasas Mila or just the Makom Mila. You're allowed to do whatever you need. Mipnei Shasakana Hilo. right? Because it's a sakana to the baby. Therefore, anything you're allowed to go ahead and do, you're allowed to go ahead and heat water before and after, and wash the entire body. So gufa. We don't go ahead and prevent medicine or hot water, right, or oil, right, for the wound on Shabbos. Shmuel Amar Noisein Chutz Lamaka, right, and Shmuel says no, you can go ahead and apply Chutz Lamaka, V'Sheis Lamaka, and then it will basically drip down to the maka. No, so you can't go ahead. It says Shmuel. You can't apply it to the wound, right? You can apply it on top of the wound, and then it will drip down, and then the medication or the area will we'll get the oil, whatever, the warm water will drip down to the wound. It'll be okay. So Meisei has some makash. It says Einoitznin shemen v'chamin al gabi moich litein al gabi makav Shabbos. So Rav said you're allowed to go ahead and earlier he said you're allowed to go ahead and apply it to the wound, and over here it says you can't go ahead and put oil onto the moch onto the on the cloth, right, or hot water, right. So it says the reason over there you can't apply it to the bandage and put it directly on the wound is because you can't put it on the bandage because one might come to do schita. He might squeeze out. You're not to go ahead and extract and squeeze out on Shabbos. So therefore, when you're applying it to the bandage, that you're forbidden to do. So Toshmak will listen. It says right? One is not allowed to go ahead and very similar. It says one is allowed to go ahead and apply either hot water or oil onto the bandage, right? And put it on top of the wound on Shabbos. That is also because it's schita. He's going to go ahead and squeeze it out. And Tanya Kavase, the Shmuel in support of Shmuel, says you can't apply it directly. It says Einosnin chamin v'shemen al gabi amaka v'Shabbos. You can't go ahead and put it directly on it. Aval noisin chus lamaka v'sheisis v'yer lamaka. But you go ahead and put it around it or on top of it and let it go ahead and drip down, and which is exactly like Shmuel said. And Torah Rabbanan noisin al gabi hamaka moich yavesh usvug yavesh. You can put on top of the wound, right, a cloth, right, which was dry, and a sponge that was dry. But not, right, a gemi, like a reed that was dry, or dry ksisin, right, dry rags or cloths. So I said, what do you mean? Kasha ksisin, ksisin, right? In the beginning, we said, right, nice nagavi maka moch. Moch is also like a bandage, like rags also. So it's the same thing. In one case, you're not allowed to put dry, and then it says you can't. So which one is it? Like kasha, ha b'chadasi. One is new, how about to give with old, right? With new ones, right? Since those help heal, right? So therefore, one that is similar doing, taking medicine on Shabbos, which is forbidden because the person that's allowed to take medicine, he might come to go ahead and crush medicine. So therefore, he can't do that. But the older rags, that you can go ahead and put it on it because then those aren't healing, and therefore that would be mutter. It's not similar. And Amar Bayish, it must be that we have new rags. Those do go ahead and cause one to heal. Fine. 2 dots. So we're in the bottom line of Kufla Medalad on base. Those of you who have lost the place of Suffolk, Vendrignus. 2 different cases. One is a Suffolk. One is a Suffolk, a baby that was born. We don't know if the baby is born in the 8th month or 9th month or 8th month, 7th month, and therefore you will not be allowed to be Machal Shabbos to give the baby a bris milah because we're only Machal Shabbos for something which is Vadai, right? But something which is Suffolk, right? Because the baby might not live, and therefore, since the baby's not going to go ahead and live, you're not allowed to be Machal Shabbos for this baby because the baby is basically Muksa, right? So therefore, you can't go ahead and give bris milah in that case, or androgynous, according to the Tanakama, Rabbi Yehuda argues, androgynous also, which is basically a Suffolk in itself. A doubt is it a boy or a girl, right? Because it has both male and female genitalia. So therefore, one would not be allowed to go ahead and give a bris milah on Shabbos. So Tanur Rabbanan, it says, the pasuk says orla so, right? His orla, right? Orla so vadai deichas Shabbos. It means a vadai orla, right? A foreskin, which is a definite foreskin, overrides the Shabbos. Velo suffix deichas Shabbos, but a suffix is not. So therefore, one who's born, and we don't know which month, is not deichas Shabbos. Orla so vadai deichas Shabbos, and then we're going to darsha multiple times, and then it says again, orla so vadai deichas Shabbos. The low androgynous dechas Shabbos, and that means when it says orlaso means a definite boy, and not one with both a genitalia, not an androgynous dechas Shabbos. And Rabbi Huda says androgynous deichas Shabbos va'anush kares. And Rabbi Huda says androgynous is deichas Shabbos and va'anush kares. And Rabbi Huda argues. He says no. For an androgynous, we go ahead and we give a bris milah on Shabbos. Also, if an androgynous does not get a bris milah by the time he's 20, then he's chayiv kares for having a foreskin, right? And our loss of, and therefore our loss is v'adich. But so someone who's definite orla is deicha Shabbos. In other words, but not someone who's born ben hashmashos. So let's say a baby was born right Friday afternoon during ben hashmashos. Right, so ben hashmashos is basically twilight between Friday and Saturday. We don't know if that if it's Friday or Saturday. So if the baby was born on Friday, it could be that Shabbos, right? You can't give it on the bris milah on Friday because the baby might have been born on Saturday, and therefore it's only 7 days old. And you can't also give it on Shabbos because why? Because the baby perhaps the Ben Ishmael was really part of Friday, and therefore Shabbos was day 9, and we know you're not allowed to go ahead and give a bris milah for a baby on day 9, so therefore you push up afterwards. So it says, right, and this is what we do today. Right, so therefore, it's born during Ben Hashmashos. Then it's not also deicha. It's not deicha Shabbos. Excuse me, I just skipped the line. But another Ben Hashmashos deicha Shabbos. Now, orla vadai deicha Shabbos. Now, only a definite orla, right? 8th day deicha Shabbos. But a baby that was basically born already circumcised, such a baby does not require. Right, and we're going to get into this. Such a baby does not require bris milah. Beis Shammai oimrim tzarich lahatif men adam bris. Beis Hillel oimrim ein tzarich. So Beis Shammai says you have to go ahead and draw blood, even if the baby was born, which appeared as circumcised. You still have to draw blood. And Beis Hillel says ein tzarich. You do not have to. So we normally hold like Beis Hillel, right? And so therefore, we do not go ahead and draw blood on Shabbos because one is not required to draw blood on a baby that was born circumcised. And Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar le'nechlechu Beis Shammai Beis Hillel al nolat shehu mohu shetzarich lahativ men adam bris mipnei she'orla kavushahi. So he says, no, there is no machlokes if a baby was born circumcised. There's no machlokes whether you need to go ahead and draw blood or not. You have to. Why? Because basically there is a foreskin, the orla is there. It's just, right, it's kavusha, right? It's like suppressed inside, right, on the skin, right? It's basically underneath the skin. It is there. So everybody holds. Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai hold, right? Baby was born on a Wednesday. The following Wednesday, you have to go ahead and draw blood, right? Because from the orla. So what is the machlokes? Al ger shenizgar kshumo. Right, let's say somebody converts, right, and he was already circumcised. He converts and he's circumcised. So Beis Shammai that Beis Shammai holds, you go ahead and take, right, you draw blood. And Beis Hillel says you don't need to, since he already had a bris milah, right, when he was younger, whatever it was, when he was born. But so now when he's converting and he's 25 years old, according to Beis Hillel, you don't go ahead and have to go and draw blood. So Omar Mar. If we said a suffix is not deichas Shabbos, right? What does that come include, right? With the suffix, to go with this. Bein shiva mechalanas Shabbos, bein shmona ein mechalanas Shabbos, right? If a baby was 7 months old, right, then we're mechal Shabbos on behalf of the baby, because the baby is a viable baby, right? Because it was born in 7 months of the pregnancy, it was just a shorter, right, time of the baby maturing. So therefore, 7 months is possible. However, if it was 8 months, then we're not mechal Shabbos. Suffix ben shiva, suffix ben shmona. But if it was a suffix whether it was 7 or 8 months, then ein mechal Shabbos, we're not mechal Shabbos. And ben. Now remember, when we say we're not mechal Shabbos, right, it doesn't mean to save a life, right? Because if it's suffix pikuach nefesh, right, then you're always mechal Shabbos, right? We're talking about a suffix. Are you mechal Shabbos for the bris milah, right? And because ben mechal Shabbos and ben shmona hareu kevin, but a one that was 8 months, right, is like a stone, it's like a rock, right? And a rock is muksa. The also talton also to move it. About imo sheichem and iko mipnei sakana. But the mother is allowed to go ahead and lean over and nurse the baby because is a sakana for her if she doesn't go ahead and nurse the baby. So therefore, she's allowed to go ahead and lean over and nurse the baby, but she can't move the baby. Fine. Itmar. So Rav Omar halacha Tanakama. So Rav says the halacha is like the Tanakama, right? Now the Tanakama was the first way we explained it, and we held that. Who says that according to Beis Hillel, right? You don't have to go ahead and remove the dam bris, right? That was the first way we understood the machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. That the machlokes is that a baby that was born circumcised, right? Beis Shammai says you have to draw blood, and Beis Hillel says you do not have to draw blood at all. Nothing to do with Shabbos. You don't have to draw blood at all. That was according to Rav. And Shmuel Amar halach Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. He says, no, Allah is like Hashem ben Elazar, who was the second way. He says, no, everyone holds you have to go ahead and draw the blood, right? The only shaila was, right, do you do it on Shabbos or not? So one time this happened, the baby was born, already circumcised to Ravada Barava. And Adri that Tleisar Mali, he went 13 different miles. He said, okay, give my baby Bris Milah. Today's the 8th day, they call it Shabbos, but the day the baby was born circumcised, and none of them would do it. Ad the Shavik Rushiva. No one would do it. And he did it himself, and he caused damage to the baby, caused him to have a Krushivka, right? Basically, he had a severed crown, right? That he caused permanent damage to the Makom Mila of the baby. And Omar Tisili Davi Adarav, right? You know what? Is deserving me because I went against the words of Rav, right? Because Rav was the one who said the halacha is like the Tanakama, who held that according to Beis Hillel, you do not need to draw blood. If you don't need to draw blood, then you don't need to go ahead and give a bris milah. Certainly, don't do a bris milah on Shabbos, and that which I did, it gave the baby bris milah. I violated the words of Rav. Similarly, Rav Nachman the Shmuel Avar, he only violated the words of Rav and not Shmuel, right? Amar Damar Shmuel B'chol Shabbos mi'Amar. Maybe Shmuel only said you do Hatavas Dam that you have to go ahead and draw blood is only needs to be done when during a weekday. But Shabbos Namachal Shabbos, and now what you did on Shabbos, right? You not only violated the words of Rav, right, to do it to draw blood at all, but even your Machal Shabbos. And so, and who said Shmuel said your Machal Shabbos for that? So he said, no, who said Ravada or la Kavushahi? He held that it wasn't that it was a suffix, right? Perhaps that the Orla was Kavusha was suppressed. He held it was Vadai suppressed. If it's Vadai suppressed, then it's Vada and Orla there. If it's Vada and Orla there, then you definitely have to go ahead and give a bris milah on day 8. And if day 8 comes on Shabbos, since it's a Vadai, therefore, maybe according to Shmuel, you would have been allowed to do it. So therefore, you only violated the words of Rab and not violated the word Shmuel. The Itamar, as we learn, Rab Omar Chayishin and Shema Orla Kavushi. Rav Yosef Omar Vade Orla Kavushi. So according to the Machlokes, Rabba says perhaps there is an Orla there, and that's why you have to go ahead and draw blood. But only a Chayishinon, right? We're worried there's a suffix. That means you're not Machal Shabbos for it. But according to the second opinion, according to Rav Yosef, who holds that there is Vade and Orla there, and so since it's Vade and Orla there, therefore that would be Machal Shabbos. And Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef says, how do I know that it's Vada and therefore it is Mechal Shabbos for it? The tiny in the Brisa, it says Rabbi Eliezer Hakavar Omer. Rabbi Eliezer Hakavar says, "Leinechlu beis Shammai ubeis Hillel al shnola shumol shetzarich lativ menu dambris." Right. So he says, no, beis Shammai beis Hillel do not argue. Right, when he's if he's born circumcised, that you have to go ahead and remove the blood. Everyone says you have to. Aman nechlu l'chal as the Shabbos. Right. They say no. The machlokes is whether you're Mechal Shabbos. Beis Shammai I mean Mechal of the Shabbos. Ubeis Hillel I mean Mechal of the Shabbos. Right? And so Beis Shammai says you're Mechal Shabbos. Beis Hillel says you're not Mechal Shabbos, but everyone holds you out to, during the week. You do Kavas Dam. You do go ahead and draw blood. So Lav Mechal. So that was Rabbi Eliezer Hakafar, right, arguing with the Tanakama. So it must be Lav Mechal the Tanakama Sub Mechal Shabbos. It must be that the Tanakama held that no. Over here, Beis Hillel is the one saying Ein Mechal Shabbos. It must who are you telling to the Tanakama? It must be that Tanakama held that according to the opinions of Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, you are Mechal Shabbos. You would be Mechal Shabbos. So Gemara says, the Dilma Tanakama Divrei Kol E Mechal in Kamar. Maybe he means to say that Divrei Kol everyone holds you're not Mechal Shabbos, and only over here then comes Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. Comes Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar to say that no. Beis Shammai says you are Mechal Shabbos, and Beis Hillel says you're not. So Gemara says, Im Kain, Rabbi Eliezer HaKavar mitama de Beis Shammai also, right? Right? Is he coming to tell us, right? What Beis Shammai holds? We normally hold like Beis Hillel. So why is he coming to restate this Bryce or the explanation to give us the opinion of Rabbi Beis Shammai is different, even though we hold like Beis Hillel, right? The only difference is if everybody holds that in Mechal of Shabbos, and now he says no, Beis Shammai holds your Mechal Shabbos, but we don't need to know Beis Shammai, right? So Dilma Haki has been saying Lo Nechlu Beis Shammai Beis Hillel B'Davar Zeh. Maybe he meant to say that no, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai weren't arguing this. In other words, maybe that was he was saying, and that they weren't arguing as to not that they didn't argue at all whether you need Hakafas Dam at all on Shabbos or all. He was just saying that during the week there is no there is no machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, and the only machlokes for them is on Shabbos. And Beis Hillel will hold that on Shabbos we do Hakavas Dam, and according to Beis Hillel, we do not do it in Mechal of Esa Shabbos. And Omar, so two dots. Omar Rav Asi, 5 lines from the bottom. Omar Rav Asi, Kol Sheimo Tamei. So now, we're going to come on to a new subject. So Amar Abasi, Kol She'imo Tmeya Leida Nimo Lishmona. New rule. If the mother is Tamei, right, after she gives birth, right, like it was taught in the Chumash, a woman gives birth to a boy or girl 7 or 14 days, that she's Tmeya. Because Kol She'imo Tmeya Leida Nimo Lishmona. Then the child gets bris milah on the 8th day. But if the mother is not Tameya and she does not get receive Tumas Leida, Ain Nima Lishmona, she doesn't. You don't wait till the 8th day. Rather, you go give a bris milah on day 1. Shneimar Pasuk says, Isha kisazriya v'yalda zachar v'tmeya v'chulei u'bayayim hashmini ima b'sar lasa. It says there when a woman gives birth to a boy, to a girl, she comes to Tmeya, and then on that, then you give the baby a bris milah. So it sounds like only when there's tuma. When there's tuma, that's when you go ahead and give a bris milah. But if the mother does not become Tmeya, then the bris milah is not Yom HaShmini, then you give it earlier. You can give it even on day 1. So Amarle Abaye, so Doris Hashem Yachich. Well, what are you talking about? Look at the previous generations before this puzzle. Look by time Avram Vino. We see over there that there wasn't too much tahara then, and nevertheless they were given bris milah on day 8. So our answer is no, the Torah was given, and then it was basically some of the new laws applied. So you're right. Before the Torah, when they used to go ahead and give bris milah on day 8, everyone did it, whether or not the mother was become Tameya. But now, right after the Torah was given, it depends on if the mother will become Tameya or not. Now, what are we talking about? Eini is this true? Itamar we learn. Yaitse dofen mishiyesh l'shtei aralos. So, a woman who gave birth via C-section, right? So that is not giving birth the natural way. Would not have the tumas leida, right? Or a child that had 2 orlas. Either it was one on top of the other, or 2 different milas, right? Or actually, 2 different, male genitalia. Rav Huna, Rav Chia, Barav, Chad Omer Mechalim is a Shabbos. Chad Omer Mechalim, right? One says you're Mechal Shabbos to give the bris milah on day 8, and the other one says you're not Mechal Shabbos to give a bris milah on day 8. However, Ad kan lo together of a Shabbos. Only here we're only talking about whether you Mechal Shabbos on day 8 to give it. But everyone holds the 8th day. In other words, you just said if someone is not tamei, then you can give it right away. But we see over here, the only shaila is whether you do it on Shabbos. You can do it on Shabbos because it's a vadei mitzvah, you have to override it. So we're saying you have to do it on day 8. You just not machal Shabbos. That's machlokes. But everyone holds you do it. So Habaha tell you. So the one says no. Maybe it's actually Habaha tell you. If you have to go ahead and give it on day 8, then you're Machal Shabbos. And if that what your opinion says you're not Machal Shabbos, it's because you don't have to give day 8. You can give it even earlier. So when it says it's actually Kitanai, it's a Machlokes tonight. So now we're going to go ahead and discuss a new concept. So Yesh Yilid Bayis Shanimo Liyachad, Yesh Yilid Bayis Shanimo Lishmon. Now, when a person he owns a slave, I know nowadays, right? We don't want to discuss slavery, right? and we want to remove any statues referring to slavery or hinting to their history. But in the Torah, there was recognized slavery, right? We had discussed the case of a Shivcha Cananis. Now, Shivcha Cananis was basically somebody who was a non-Jewish woman that was owned by a Jewish owner, and there were different halachas how to deal with it. And one of which was they would go ahead and basically sort of convert to become a Shifra Cananis, and their children were basically owned to the master, and they would have to have a bris milah. So when with the bris milah? So yeshilid, if there are cases, and we're going to explain these cases. Yeshilid bayis shanim aliyachad, yeshilid bayis shanim alashmona. They're those babies that were born right to a shiva kananis that you give the bris milah on day 1, and there are those that you give the bris milah right on day 8. And yesh miknas kesef shimalacha. And not only that, some were born to the house, and some were purchased. Right, those are called miknas kesef, purchases. Right, yesh miknas kesef shimalacha. And there were those that were purchased that their bris milah is on day 1. Yesh miknas kesef shimalacha. And there are those that were purchased. The bris milah is on day 8. So there's some on day 1, some on day 8. Right. The reason that there is different cases, right, is because let's look on the side. Right, the Torah repeats over here when I guess when one is born into the house, it says over there that you should go ahead and circumcise if he's born into the house, and then later on just says you should circumcise without mentioning day 8. So the Torah basically hints that there is possibility for one to be born that is not just to be bris milah, but without having day 8. So we have to figure out. So we say in both categories of yilid bayis and miknas kesef, both of them have categories of babies that require bris milah on day 8, and babies that require, or you can even do it even on day 1. So yesh miknas kesef shemil leachad, yesh miknas kesef shemil lishmona ketzad. So what's the case of miknas kesef, the bris milah on day 1, and miknas kesef day 8? So lokach shivcha muberes ve'acharkach yalda. So let's say, right? So miknas kesef you purchase. So you purchase a shivcha who is muberes, who is pregnant, and she gives birth. Then it's a regular. On the 8th day, go ahead and give a bris milah. And lokach shivcha v'ladima. One goes ahead and he buys a slave woman and the baby that she just gave birth to. Since right, it wasn't born to him right as an owner, so therefore he's not required to go ahead and give a bris milah on day 8. So therefore, just give a bris milah even on day 1. Okay, so and how is the yilid bayis that was born to him? Go ahead, required to give 8. So lokach shivcha v'nisabra eslav yalda. So he goes ahead, he buys a shivcha, and then she becomes pregnant while she's living in his house, right? Or the yalda, and then she gives birth. Zeo yilid bayis shanimo lishmana. This is a yilid bayis that requires bris milah on the 8th day, and we'll get to the other category because we didn't explain the yilid bayis. That's day 1. We'll get to that. Rav Chama Omar yalda v'achakach hitvila. So it says, Rav Chama, no, there's something else we're discussing here. We're discussing Yolda v'achar hitvila, right? She gives birth, and afterwards, she goes ahead and she's tovelis, right? Now, when she is tovelis, she's tovelis she has to go ahead and go to the mikvah in order to basically to be obligated as a shiva kananis, right? Before, up until their quote-unquote conversion, even though they're not fully Jews, right? But they are required in mitzvahs that are upon shiva kananis. So if she goes ahead and gives birth, and afterwards she goes ahead and then goes to the mikvah for her tefillah in order to become a shiva kananis. Since the baby was not born to their mother at once as she was a shiva kananis, rather it was before she had the halachic status of being required to follow the mitzvahs. So therefore, her baby would only require wouldn't require a bris milah of 8 days. Rather, you can do it right away. However, hitvila, if she went to the mikvah v'acharkach yalda, and then afterwards she went ahead and gave birth, then zeh yilid bayis hanim l'shmona. This is considered a yilid bayis that is this would be considered to be a yilid bayis that requires the 8th day because she went to the mikvah first before she gave birth. Tanakama, but according to the Tanakama, so Rav Chama introduced. He had this whole concept of whether or not before or after they went to the mikvah. Tanakama didn't hold that, but Tanakama lo shani le bein yitila v'charkach yalda bein yalda v'charkach tefila. whether or not she went to the mikvah before she gave birth or after she gave birth. Even though, right, that the mother was not tamei when she gave birth, nevertheless, nimo lishmona. She goes ahead and gets a bris milah on the 8th day. So what do you see from over here? So we just said before, the way we brought this in was if a woman is tamei, right? If a woman is tamei, then that has to do with whether or not, whether or not we wait 8 days, whether or not it has to be 8th day or not. That was a whole machlokes by a baby that was born with a C-section. But we see, according to this, and we said it's actually machlokes tonight because we see over here, according to Rav Chama says, well, if the woman is tovelas before, then she's a woman who's now Jewish, and therefore the child is 8 days, but she is not tovelas. Then she does not have the halachas of a shifcha kananis, and therefore, right, you would go ahead and give a bris milah on day 1. So we see that Rav Chama is similar to the opinion before that says that's totally on if a woman is tamei or not. And Bishlam Rav Chama Mishkakas La Yilid Bayis Nima Leachad. As we explained earlier, according to Rav Chama, we can find a case of Yilid Bayis that he gets the bris milah on day 1, because as we mentioned earlier, that was a case of if she went to the mikveh only after she gave birth, right? And Yilid Bayis Nima Lashmona, and also a Yilid Bayis that who was born in the house to get on the 8th day. In other words, that was a case of, which the Gemara will explain in a minute. Yilid Bayis Shmona, if she went to the mikveh first and then gave birth, or Miknas Kesef Nima Lashmona, or whether one that he purchased as it was day 1 or the first day or the 8th day, depending on if he purchased while she was pregnant or not. And Yalda, and what would that be? Right? Yalda if she gave birth and afterwards she went to the mikvah zayili based on shemalecha. Now I was going to explain, right? That which I just said outside the Gemara. So Yalda if she gave birth and she was basically living in his house, she was a yilid bayis and she gave birth and afterwards she went to the mikvah zayili based on shemalecha. This is one. Since she doesn't become tamei until afterwards, right? Because she only went to the mikveh afterwards. And she didn't become tamei during childbirth, so therefore the baby only has to wait 1 day. Hitvila, but if she went first, the mother does become tamei, and therefore the baby has to wait 8 days. And miknas kaza shnimo lashmona. And what's the case of miknas kaza shnimo lashmona? That's kagon she lokach shivcha muberes v'tila v'yolda. Right. For instance, he bought a pregnant woman, right, and then she went to the mikvah. And then she gave birth. So since she went to the mikveh first, then therefore she waits 8 days. Right? And another case would be miknas kesef. There'll only be day 1. What would that be? And for a case where he bought a shivcha, right? And basically he went in with a partner with somebody else that he bought a shivcha, and this one bought the uber, the fetus, right? So since the two of them are not related, right, each one gets 1. So therefore, it's not considered to be that he purchased an uber or a fetus or a baby that was born to a mother who becomes tameya, and therefore it would require only the first day would be the day 1 would be the bris milah. So El Tanakama, but according so this is all so Rav Chama, everything worked out. There was a scenario, but according to Rav Chama, right? Rav Chama El Tanakama, Rav Chama was good. El Tanakama, according to the Tanakama, so Bishlam Kula Mishkachas Law. I understand we just explained all the cases. Ella Yilid Beis Nima Leachar Hechim Mishkachas Law. How do you have a case of according to him it doesn't matter whether the mother becomes tamei or not? So how do you have a case of where the Yilid Beis, in other words, the shivcha is living in his house and she gets pregnant, she gives birth? How are you ever going to find a scenario like that where the baby does not require a bris milah on day 8, right? Since it doesn't make a difference to do with tvila, whether she comes tamei or not, so she lives in his house, she has to follow the rules. I don't care if she comes tamei or not, the baby should require 8 days. Where do you find a scenario that the baby does not require 8 days for a bris milah? So Rabbi Yirmiyah b'lokech shivcha l'ubra. Maybe when he only acquires a shivcha for the purpose of her fetus. In other words, he doesn't own her, he just owns the baby. When she gives birth, the baby will be his. So that's how he bought it. So so this Rosh Hashanah opinion holds, if I buy something
the rights to the fruits of something, i.e., like the children of something, it's like I don't own the mother or the that which it came from. That's okay. But according to the opinion who holds that if you buy the rights to something, it's as if I own that which it came from. So if I bought the rights to a woman giving birth, then I also own the mother. If I own the mother, then it should require 8 days. So where are you going to stay there? How are you going to find one day? Let's say he acquires a shivcha on the condition that she will not go ahead to go to the mikvah and become a shivcha kananis. So since that in this case that he can never own the mother, so she will never have the lachas, and therefore in this case I do not have to go ahead and require the child to be to what's called. I don't require the child to wait 8 days because since the mother will never be a full belong to him, and therefore in this case it's just like if I bought somebody, if I bought a woman and a baby separately, that over there the case, the baby also on the first day. So it's over here, since I'll never own the mother because that was the condition. Therefore, the baby in this case would only require 1 day for the bris milah. And I guess there's a lot of information. We'll stop here at Tanya. It's a good place to stop. So tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, we will continue at 7:15. Everyone have a wonderful day. Shkoyach.